This is why I keep trying to get Tony to have stuff ready on site. It does put a lot of extra pressure on me.
Kevin Beets just shattered expectations, pulling in a jaw-dropping $1 million gold haul in one of the fastest, most intense digs of the season. The ground was unstable, the weather brutal, and the window to strike was razor-thin. But against all odds, Kevin hit a pay zone so rich, even the crew was left speechless. This wasn't just luck. It was a calculated risk, executed with precision. And now, the Beets crew is staring down the biggest gold breakthrough in their history. If you're ready for high-stakes mining and record-breaking gold, smash that like button, hit subscribe, because Kevin's just changed the game, and what comes next will leave you stunned. Kevin Beets didn't announce it. No press, no broadcast crew, not even a whisper on the gold forums. One day, he was at camp, running diagnostics with the rest of the Beets clan. The next, he was gone, into the deep Yukon, not on Tony's payroll, not under the family name. He'd filed no permits publicly. No one even knew the land was staked. They would later learn the site was dubbed Echo Site Delta, but not through any official channel. The name only existed in Kevin's encrypted digital logs, buried beneath layers of private scans and geological models most miners couldn't afford to access. He wasn't looking for a typical claim. This was about something else. Control, legacy, silence, a name that would stand apart from his father's. The satellite survey that started it all had cost over 30 grand per hour. Kevin had paid it himself. The scans revealed a folded geological structure beneath a patch of glacier-exposed terrain along the far edge of Thistle Creek. At first glance, the area looked like dead rock, just a scrap of barren land that even the Yukon Geological Survey had abandoned back in the 80s. A failed core sample from 1983 showed a miserable 0.2 grams per ton. No one had touched it since, but Kevin saw the bends. Tightly folded metamorphic rock intersected by ancient stream beds. Natural traps that, under the right pressure, could concentrate heavy gold into hidden fractures and freeze it in place beneath glacial silt. What others saw as rejection zones, he saw as vaults. It wasn't intuition. It was data, calculation, and risk. So much risk that he didn't dare attach the Beets name to the operation. He quietly created a numbered shell corporation based in Alberta and leased the land for 3 months. Paid in full, under radar. No film crew, no equipment sourced through family routes. Even the heavy machinery came under silent shipment. Older rigs, retrofitted for winter, painted in matte grey with no insignia. Then came the LiDAR. Drones swept over the landscape, painting it in pulses of infrared, and that's when it got real. What looked like uneven glacial crust was anything but. Kevin found linear cuts, box-like formations, and faint ridgelines, far too symmetrical to be natural. A geotech confirmed the signature resembled an old dredge line, possibly abandoned in the 1930s, well before yield reports were ever filed. He dug through archives and found mention of a 1935 expedition that had disappeared into the region without documentation. The pieces were falling into place. He didn't wait. Kevin flew in permafrost riggers from Alaska, specialists used to drilling through ancient ice and frozen bedrock. Over 6 days, they cut 24 boreholes into the crust, extracting long glassy cores laced with magnetite and black sand. Every hole came back with visible gold. And when the assays were returned, Kevin didn't speak for a full minute. 5.9 grams per ton, across the board. More than triple the regional average and locked in ice. Inside the cores, flakes shimmered, some fine, some coarse, suspended in place as if time itself had stopped. A natural deep freeze had preserved the gold exactly where it fell. It hadn't dispersed, hadn't washed downriver. It was all still there, waiting. Kevin's hands were shaking as he held the first sample to the light. But nature had a clock ticking. Glacial rebound pressure, the slow expansion and shift of ice layers as they melted, meant he had less than a month before the ground destabilized. Environmental modeling software gave him 22 days. That was it. No chance for error. The moment the melt started, the whole dig zone would collapse inward. He wasn't just racing time, he was threading a needle made of ice, weight, and silence. Kevin issued a lockdown. No cell towers, no active drones, no outside signals. Every crew member was forced to sign a 4-year non-disclosure agreement before stepping foot on site. There would be no photos, no posts, no late-night leaks. Only what he allowed. The entire camp was run from a converted Arctic cargo trailer. Its interior, lined with blackout shielding, copper mesh Faraday walls, and fiber optic data ports. He called it the core. Then came the rig. Kevin didn't use one of the big-name wash plants. He brought out his own creation, Redline X7, a Frankenstein of welded D10 parts, insulated, cryo-cooled separation trays, and heat-recycled sluice mats, designed to operate at -18 degrees Celsius without clogging, freezing, or spitting out gold with tailings. He installed a system of real-time capture sensors, fiber optic reflectors embedded in every mat, feeding live readouts to a single screen inside the core. It started running before sunrise. The water hissed in the freezing dark. Kevin sat alone, eyes fixed on the first sluice. Nothing. Then a flash. Reflected light. The signature was unmistakable. Heavy flake. Bright. Metallic. Another. Then 3 in a row. The system pinged. Concentration level rising. He didn't blink, didn't smile. He simply leaned forward and whispered into his recorder, "Start the clock." And the clock didn't stop. Hour after hour, the system kept feeding gold. The deeper they dug, the richer it got. Kevin barely spoke. He barely moved. He just watched, tracking yield, temperature, slurry flow, obsessing over every spike, every dip. By hour 96, the numbers shattered expectations. 311 ounces. And they weren't even through the top layer. It was the kind of yield that made headlines, the kind Parker Schnabel would have spent weeks chasing with a 100-yard cut. But Kevin didn't call anyone. No celebration, no social post. He stared at the figures, then at the terrain, and muttered, "That doesn't track." The gold was coming too fast, too concentrated. The average drift placer couldn't explain it, especially not one sealed beneath a glacier for 90 years. Kevin took his tablet and started sketching out flow models in real time. What if this wasn't just a trapped deposit? What if there was something beneath, a paleoplacer trench, ancient and undocumented, feeding gold laterally from the southwest under layers of unmapped till? As if confirming his suspicion, the wash plant began to choke, not on clay, not on rocks, on something else. Solid crystalline structures, angular, dense, clogging the upper sluice trays. Kevin pulled one out himself. It was rough-edged, slightly matte, cubed. The lab confirmed it. Natural gold crystals, cubes up to 1.8 centimeters wide, the kind of formation that required perfect geochemical stillness, undisturbed for thousands of years. And they were stacked like bricks in the sediment, locked, waiting, sealed under a fault. Kevin fed the terrain data into his hydromapping software and reversed the simulation, watching where the water would have traveled thousands of years ago. The model lit up in veins, ribbons of density spiking past 1.95 on the optical index. Pockets of gold-rich silt marked the flanks like lightning scars. He stared at the screen and said quietly, "We're not just in the channel, we're in the vault." He pushed deeper. Drilling along the southwest wall confirmed what he feared and hoped for: a vertical shear zone, ripped by tectonic compression, layered in oxidized pyrite and chalcopyrite, classic signs of coarse gold concentration. But this was no ordinary vein. This was a compression pocket, a sealed fracture layered with hydrothermal deposits and streaks of black manganese. Kevin called in the reserve loader. No waiting. The wall needed to come down now. They broke in hard. The first 27 yards, just a fraction of what they'd mapped, delivered 51.4 ounces of fine and nugget gold, more than 2 ounces per yard, unheard of for the Klondike. Kevin didn't sleep. He didn't stop. He ordered a 24-hour dig rotation, bringing in crew from Dawson to run night shift under full blackout. Then the tremors hit. Seismic sensors pinned red. 3.1 magnitude. Shallow. Close. Kevin checked the charts. No fault activity had been recorded in the area for a decade. But this wasn't just a tremor. This was something shaking beneath the compression zone. Whether natural or not, he didn't flinch. "We're too close to stop." The next day, the excavator bucket slammed into something solid. Wood, iron-bound, buried under layers of frost-caked gravel. They cleared it slowly. Timber beams, blackened not by fire, but by age and pressure. A shaft, old, unmapped, reinforced, collapsed halfway through. Inside, a rusted chain hung limp from a hoist wheel, frozen in place. Half-crushed ore cart tracks curved down and disappeared under a mound of collapsed debris. On the far wall, painted in red ochre, nearly eroded by time, a number: 17. Kevin's historian cross-referenced the dig logs. There had never been a registered chamber 17 in this region. No such shaft existed in records after 1936. But in the mud near the hoist, they found a sealed leather folio, nearly dissolved from time. Inside, assay slips, yellowed, handwritten. The name, Halvor Langdon. Dated 1937. Test 4B, 6.2 ounces per ton. Unstable. Langdon had filed no claim. His name disappeared in 1938, presumed dead. No record of extraction, no report. But now Kevin held proof. Physical, undeniable. Someone had found this vault, worked it, and died before they could take the gold out. Beneath a rotted beam, wrapped, they discovered something heavier. A bound ledger, pages swollen with moisture, but legible, columns of weight, location tags, tally marks. One word repeated throughout, uncollected. The totals scrawled in graphite, 1,048 ounces. Sealed due to breach flooding. Status, unrecovered. Kevin stood inside the shaft, hand on the cold stone, eyes locked on that number. Over 1,000 ounces, just sitting beneath the ice, untouched since the Great Depression. He didn't speak for minutes. The crew held their breath. No cameras, no documentary. Just a silence that said more than anything he could have filmed. And Kevin Beets, buried in that half-frozen tomb of rust and gold, finally whispered, "This is the one." He didn't sleep that night. Not because of the gold, but because of the problem it revealed. The deeper he looked, the clearer it became. Kraken wasn't enough. Not for this terrain, not for what was coming next. So he scrapped it. Rexflow was the answer. A prototype system unlike anything the Yukon had seen before. Built with nano-coated riffles designed originally for lunar regolith mining, it separated gold by surface tension, with an efficiency that seemed almost otherworldly. The plant's compact modules hummed steadily as they processed the stubborn frozen gravels. Over 6 straight days, Rexflow churned through 1,900 cubic yards of material, recovering a staggering 641.7 ounces of gold with only a 9% loss in tailings. The crew barely blinked, their shifts running in near silence except for the relentless hum of machinery and the occasional clink of gold bars being weighed. Amid the grind, they identified what Kevin called plunge points, narrow, vertical drops where fine gold particles funneled downward like sand through an hourglass, settling into dense pockets so tightly packed they almost defied geology. The assays told the full story, purity levels soaring at 96.8%, the highest Kevin had ever encountered, with some nuggets clocking in at 99.1%, nearly refinery pure gold. The week's haul alone added more than $624,000 to the vault's growing total. Kevin sat in the core, updating the digital ledger, then hesitated before deleting the satellite backup files. This was no show. This was business. The stillness was shattered abruptly. A private helicopter appeared out of nowhere, skimming low and landing unauthorized less than a kilometer from Site Delta. Kevin's security was swift and uncompromising. Blockades were raised, and a telemetry drone intercepted and confiscated, suspected to belong to a rival mining conglomerate watching their every move. Leaked legal documents confirmed Kevin's suspicions. A major Canadian mining firm had filed a claim mere 400 meters from Delta, asserting prior survey rights. The message was clear. Someone wanted this strike for themselves. For 2 tense days, a silent standoff ensued. Legal teams circled like wolves, but no contact was made. Kevin shifted operations to a tented dig zone 1.5 kilometers upstream, moving by night and tightening security at every turn. Rumors began swirling in the mining forums, whispers of a gold ghost claim, breaking the $1 million mark. Yet no footage, no photos, no proof. Kevin's voice cut through the speculation during a terse crew meeting. This doesn't hit the media. Not now, not ever. Nature forced Kevin's hand soon after. As melt season edged closer, the silt wall near Chamber 17 began to collapse. Within hours, a 36-hour emergency evacuation was launched, the team pulling back as the ground shifted dangerously beneath their feet. The final cut-down was carried out remotely by Dozer, 108 yards of ultra-compact sediment extracted before the chamber sealed permanently under the weight of glacial pressure. From that last batch emerged 87 ounces of gold, including a remarkable 10.3-ounce nugget embedded in quartz. The crew christened it the Delta Crown. Kevin walked the perimeter alone at dawn, frost clinging to his jacket as he recorded a private log. If this is the last load, I'm satisfied. With the plant shutdown ordered, containers sealed tight, and final bars loaded into cryo-sealed storage drums, the site fell into a cold silence, its secrets buried once more beneath the frozen Yukon landscape. For a long moment, Kevin said nothing. No calls, no crew chatter, just the low whine of wind over steel and the quiet blink of the vault drive in his hand. Total confirmed haul, 1,072 ounces. The ledger sat silently on the encrypted storage unit, blinking green with finality. At spot prices just over $1,050,000, Kevin's strike had crossed the $1 million line, not just in raw weight, but in its symbolic break from every rule of the game. This wasn't a televised win. It wasn't a payout for cameras. It was a quiet, irreversible moment in the dirt. One segment, 400 ounces precisely, was separated under tight inventory control and signed over under NDA to a Yukon Historical Preservation Board. Not for display, not for any museum placard, just held in shadow under agreed terms that guaranteed secrecy for at least a generation. Kevin signed with no expression. The rest of the gold, 672 ounces, was logged as legacy inventory, then moved under private armored escort to an undisclosed vault in Alberta. No courier manifest, no insurance trail, just encrypted satellite pings that blinked once before disappearing behind proprietary walls. Kevin walked the fault zone one last time. He mapped it himself. Each break in the earth recorded manually, every unstable zone marked with red graphite. The zone was declared a no-return field, permanently removed from their operational map. The seismic stress along the vertical shear zones made the ground too dangerous, too volatile. The deeper truth, Kevin didn't want anyone else touching it. There would be no show this season, no GoPro confessionals, no final wavetable fanfare. Kevin refused broadcast rights, scrapped the drone footage, and deleted the raw media footage off the mobile rigs. "This isn't entertainment," he muttered to his foreman. "It's my family's endgame." In the weeks that followed, subtle ripples formed far from Thistle Creek. 3 exploration companies filed for mineral rights along the perimeter, each citing adjacent resource potential based on public geological databases. But every claim was mysteriously delayed, then blocked outright by land registry discrepancies no one could explain. Data servers where drone logs were stored went dark. Footage of Site Delta, both thermal and topographical, was missing. Not redacted, not archived, just gone. A data engineer reported corrupted packets on backup servers in both Whitehorse and Fairbanks. The log showed deletion from inside the firewalls. One anonymous image surfaced online. A blurry crate lid stamped Rexflow, Batch 9, 641.7 ounces. No metadata, no location tags. The post was up for 11 minutes before disappearing. Some said it was real, others said AI fake, but no one knew who posted it or why. Speculations spiraled. Geologists began whispering not about a placer deposit, but a lost river system, an ancient, gold-bearing flow line from the Pleistocene era, diverted underground during the last ice advance. The theory went viral on fringe forums that Kevin had tapped into a paleohydraulic vault untouched for 30,000 years. Only one field note remained in a decrypted cache from the rig's tablet, recovered by accident weeks later during routine firmware sync. The line was unformatted, half-corrupted, but still legible. The vault wasn't built, it was uncovered. After that, Kevin was gone. No social posts, no interviews, no contract renewals. He didn't return to the discovery lot in Dawson. No one saw him at Thistle Creek. His profile vanished from the permit databases. Entire seasons of Gold Rush aired without a single mention of his name. Tony Beets, when pressed, simply grunted, "The boy did something big. Bigger than me, that's all I'll say." Freddie Dodge was asked point-blank about Site Delta during a podcast taping. He paused mid-sentence, lowered his voice, and said, "I don't think you'll ever see that place again." By winter, Dawson City was echoing with a ghost story. Miners swapped tales over bourbon about a kid who broke $1 million in one season and buried the claim with his silence. Some believed Kevin found more than gold. Others thought he went mad. A few, the older ones, just nodded and said nothing. They'd seen it happen before. Then, months later, buried deep in an off-the-record late-night podcast feed, recorded from an RV parked outside Haynes Junction. Kevin's voice surfaced for 3 minutes. The host asked the only question that mattered. What really happened out there? Kevin's response was quiet, measured, final. What I found was mine, and some things stay buried.